Good morning and welcome to another exciting time where we talk about business. It is Business 360 and my name is Blyden Okem. In Business 360 today we'll look at the key features and the biggest talking points in the world of business. And part of it being central banks, interest rates and rate hikes. We had the Federal Reserve bring out keep that rate standing at the previous day. Also we'll look at the commodity market and the intensity of it, what the prices are, and even the stock market. But we begin with a Japanese firm, Toshiba. Toshiba, one of Japan's oldest and biggest firm, is set to end its 74-year stock market history as a group of investors have bought a majority stake. The company has announced that a consortium led by private equity firm Japan Industrial Partners has purchased 78.65% of its shares. Owning more than two-thirds of the firm allows the group to complete a $14 billion deal to take it private. The firm's roots date back to 1875 as a maker of telegraph equipment. Under the deal, its shares could be taken off the stock market as early as the end of this year. That's the story around Toshiba. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had a long-coveted meeting with President Joe Biden on Wednesday, the first since Netanyahu took office at the helm of its country's far-right government late last year. The conversation was about peace between Israel and Saudi Arabia, how this can bring a lasting solution to the Arab-Israeli conflicts. And without peace, there is no business. Let's find out more.
My friend, welcome. Thank you. Welcome. See each other in Washington. One of the things that we're working on a lot more together today, we're going to discuss some of the hard issues, and that is upholding democratic values that lie at the heart of our partnership, including checks and balances in our systems, and preserving a path to a negotiated two-state solution, and ensuring that Iran never acquires a nuclear weapon. Because even where we have some differences, my commitment to Israel, as you know, is ironclad. I think without Israel, there's not a Jew in the world that's secure.
I think that under your leadership, Mr. President, we can forge a historic peace between Israel and Saudi Arabia. And I think such a peace would go a long way, first, to advance the end of the Arab-Israeli conflict, achieve reconciliation between the Islamic world and the Jewish state, and advance a genuine peace between Israel and the Palestinians. This is something within our reach together.
Yeah. Okay.
A quest for peace within the Middle East and businesses around that area of the world. In the UK, Sunak says UK isn't watering down its net zero targets. The UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak says it's absolutely wrong to say the government is watering down its net zero targets. He spoke at Downing Street about the government's green agenda. Let's find out more.
This idea that we're watering down our targets is just wrong, right? And this goes to this debate where there's all this emotion in it and people on extremes, but those are the facts. So if someone thinks that what we're doing is somehow not sufficient, not ambitious enough, I don't know what they'd say to pretty much every other country in the world, because we are way out ahead already and continuing to maintain that leadership. So I'm very confident that what we're doing is right, because not only do we have these world-leading targets, we're actually just doing it in a better way that will bring the country along with us and save families thousands of pounds. And there's nothing watering down about that. That's why I have no problem.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak confirmed that he's delaying plans to ban the sale of new fossil-fueled cars to 2035, pushing back the current targets by 5 years. Let's find out more from the Prime Minister.
To give us more time to prepare, I'm announcing today that we're going to ease the transition to electric vehicles. You'll still be able to buy petrol and diesel cars and vans, until 2035. Even after that, you'll still be able to buy and sell them second-hand. We're aligning our approach with countries like Germany, France, Spain, Italy, Australia, Canada, Sweden, and US states such as California, New York, and Massachusetts, and still ahead of the rest of America and other countries like New Zealand. Now, to get to net zero, we also need a fairer, better approach to decarbonising
in Africa. The big question is Africa's cost of living crisis getting better or worse? The cost of living crisis in Africa is a pressing concern that continues to affect the continent's economic landscape. Africa faces an ongoing cost of living crisis driven by surging prices of essentials like food and fuel. Nigeria's annual inflation hits an 18-year high at 25.8% in August 2023, impacting the ability of many Nigerians to afford basics. South Africa and Kenya also grapple with rising fuel prices, adding their economic challenges. Meanwhile, the World Bank reports a broader economic slowdown in sub-Saharan Africa. In Uganda, the Ugandan president, Yoweri Museveni, recently addressed claims that his wealth was amassed through government resources. He denied getting rich from government funds. Museveni, who has been in power for 31 years, stressed that his wealth resulted from his private ventures and hard work. In a bid to clarify his position, the president noted that no member of his family had worked for the government prior to 1965. He encouraged Ugandans to adopt modernized traditional farming for self-sufficiency in food and to address household food security. Still in Uganda. In an effort to boost its dwindling exports of edible oil, Uganda has started the reconstruction of important routes of entry to oil-sealed projects in 81 areas. Uganda invests $64.3 million to rehabilitate 2,500 kilometers of route for edible oil-sealed projects in 81 areas. Edible oil exports in Uganda dropped from $281.1 million to $90.5 million in July 2023, prompting revitalization efforts. And challenges in seed quality, yield, and local demand hinder Uganda's edible oil industry, despite trade agreements. Let's look at businesses in the country when we return from this break, as Nigeria and World Bank come into certain level of agreement. Don't go anywhere. Well, welcome back. It is Business 360, and my name is Blyden Okem. Looking at businesses within the country, Nigeria. The World Bank said Nigeria accounted for the highest remittance flow into sub-Saharan Africa in 2022, as the continent recorded an estimated $52.9 billion. According to a report titled "Remittances Remain a Resilience but are Slowing," which covered 2022, it was disclosed that Nigeria accounted for $20.1 billion. This represents 38% of the total remittance flow, and it's higher than that of Ghana at 11.9%, Kenya 8.5%, Tanzania 25%, Uganda 17.3%, and Rwanda 21.2%. A broader look showed that remittance flows to low and middle income countries was $647 billion, but it was projected to rise slowly by 1.4% to $656 billion this year. For the total remittance flows globally, the projection is $840 billion in 2023 and is projected to increase further by $18 billion in 2024. Still in Nigeria. President Bola Tinubu on Wednesday rang the closing bell at the Nasdaq stock market in New York. That being said, Tinubu, who was accompanied to the ceremony by President of the United States Africa Business Center at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Scott Isner, urged the American business community to invest in Nigeria's bubbling market. So looking at the talking point regarding this, the Nasdaq stock market is an American stock exchange based in New York. To cryptocurrency adoption in the country. Cryptocurrency adoption is on the rise in Nigeria and is driven by the challenges of a weakening currency and escalating inflation in Africa's largest economy. A recent report by blockchain research firm Chain Analysis showed that from July 2022 to June 2023, Nigeria witnessed a 9% year-over-year growth in cryptocurrency transactions amounting to $56.7 billion. The rise is driven by the challenges of weakening currency and escalating inflation. On the other hand, Uganda, though not as prominent in cryptocurrency use as some other markets, experienced impressive growth. Cryptocurrency transactions in Uganda surged by 245%, totaling $1.6 billion during the same period. Meanwhile, Kenya experienced a significant decline, with cryptocurrency usage plummeting by over 50% to $8.4 billion. Now, to Nigeria's currency. The Naira has continued its depreciation after exchanging to the dollar at 980 Naira per dollar at the Paro market on Wednesday. Bureau de change operators attributed the development to the forex scarcity. However, on the FMDQ at the official window, the Naira appreciated slightly after closing at 770.71 per dollar on Wednesday, from 776 Naira 76 kobo per dollar on Tuesday. We'll hit another break, and when we come back, it would be economic statistics all around the world and the talking point within that area. Don't go anywhere.
Spectrum TV, broadening your horizon.
Welcome back. It is Business 360 and my name is Blyden Uken. Looking at global economy and the statistics around it, its implication, let's move to global economic calendar this morning, looking at expected data releases for today, Thursday, September 21st, 2023, the calendar this morning. According to statistical driven picture of the market, economic statistics indicates in the calendar that by 2 p.m. this afternoon, a global market would be expecting the Bank of England's interest rate decisions, and previous standing was at 5.25%. The forecast is that interest rates could get to 5.5%, higher from 5.25% previous standing, and it's still the same consensus. By 2 p.m., we'll find out what the numbers would be. Now to the Feds. The Fed signals one more rate hike this year. The Federal Reserve kept the target range for the funds rate at 5.25% to 5.5% yesterday, early hours of this morning following a 25 basis point hike in July, but signaled there could be another hike this year. Projections released in a dot plot showed the possibility of one more increase this year, then only 2 cuts in 2024 compared to 4 cuts during the last update in June. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell says the Fed is fairly close to where it needs to be. Let's find out more from Jerome Powell, Federal Reserve Chairman. Morocco's annual inflation rate accelerated for the first time in 6 months to 5% in August 2023, from 4.9% in the previous month, as costs advanced slightly for restaurants and hotels and health. On the other hand, there was a deceleration in prices of furnishing, household equipment, and routine household maintenance, clothing and footwear, while inflation was steady for housing and utilities at 1% and education at 4.5%. Additionally, food inflation posted the least increase in 15 months. The core rate, which excludes volatile items, stood at 4.9% in July, the lowest since April last year, after a prior 5.4% hike. Now to Rwanda. Rwanda's GDP growth remained strong in the second quarter. The economy of Rwanda expanded by 6.3% from a year earlier in the second quarter of 2023, following a 9.2% rise in the previous 3-month period. This marked the 10th consecutive quarter of solid growth, buoyed by the service sector in the first quarter, notably information and communication at positive 37%. At the same time, wholesale and retail trade rose by 6%, while transport services increased by 8%, mainly due to a 23% surge in air transport. Meanwhile, the industrial sector grew by 6%, with mining and quarrying activities increasing by 7%, manufacturing by 8%, and construction by 4%. On the other hand, agricultural activity stalled after rising by 1% in the previous period. Now to the commodity market. Oil slides for third session. WTI crude futures fell towards $89 per barrel today, sliding for the third straight session as the U.S. Federal Reserve delivered a hawkish pause. The U.S. Central Bank left interest rates unchanged as widely expected, but signaled another rate hike before the end of the year, raising concerns about global economic growth and energy demand. Meanwhile, official data showed that U.S. crude inventories fell by 2.135 million barrels last week, broadly in line with expectations. Now let's move to the market and see what the prices are, beginning with